From our 22 News Broadcast Center, this is 22 News in Focus.
Welcome to 22 News in Focus. I'm Don Shipman. In April, Governor Baker approved a bill that suspended certain evictions and foreclosures in Massachusetts. The law is expected to remain in effect until either August 18th of this year or when Baker lifts the COVID-19 emergency declaration. Now, for people who aren't working or are having some financial difficulties right now, losing their house is a frightening possibility, right? Many families may also be having trouble paying other bills, including utilities, and having to make a decision about buying food and medicines. So today on 22 News in Focus, we're going to be discussing housing insecurity and other issues facing people who are struggling financially in our region during this national health crisis. Joining me now is Steve Huntley, the Executive Director of the Valley Opportunity Council. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
First, I want to start with the organization. Tell me about it.
So the Valley Opportunity Council started in the 60s. We were part of the Lyndon Baines Johnson's War on Poverty. We were an organization amongst many throughout the country that were set up to help folks advance economically to self-sufficiency.
So what is your mission overall? And maybe it has evolved over the years.
It has absolutely evolved over the years, and it evolves from year to year, and this year it's evolved throughout the year, honestly. So up until March, our mission really was working with folks to help them get into the prosperity economy, where jobs were plentiful, the economy was booming, things were going great, and then the world crashed, if you will, and we now are working with folks to make sure they maintain stable housing, that they're fed, that they have their basic needs met.
What are some of the services and programs that you offer right now? Just overall, too, because I do want to delve into COVID-19 specifically, but overall.
So our largest program right now for participants is our energy assistance program. We provide heat and support for people to pay their heating bills. That's wrapping up, as you might guess, based on the time of year. We also have a nutrition program called the WIC program. We have 8 early education centers. We have 250 units of housing. We have some adult education programming, including citizenship, adult ESOL, English for speakers of other languages. And we also offer some senior programming as well for senior companion, those sorts of things. Every program's evolving for COVID in a different way. So it's a pretty complex time for us.
I can only imagine. Do you have a particular demographic that you target on a regular basis?
So we really help folks that have low wage jobs, and we try and help them get up the economic scale towards self-sufficiency, towards advancement, whether English is a barrier to their earning potential, or if unstable housing, early education, their children struggle with certain things, we help them through that. So it's more of a broader umbrella. We try and do everything we can to help people advance economically, and the activities that we do, we evolve based on what the conditions require.
And then which communities do you serve? Because I mentioned off the top, this region, is it all of Western Massachusetts, or is it maybe specific municipalities?
We're specifically only in Hampden County, but we go as far out as Brimfield and Wales for some programming, and as far as Chester and out in the edges of the Berkshires.
Okay, all right. And then if someone is looking to, get some help, how do people apply for the programs that you guys offer?
So the website is our best resource to connect folks to www.valleyOpp.com, and that gives you an idea of what the different programs are, and it can lead you towards, for fuel assistance, for example, there's a pre-screening tool that can help determine if you're eligible or not. And for the WIC program, there's phone numbers to call. A lot of that's done via phone right at the moment. Housing, we're working out a new website where folks could apply for apartments online. So our website really is the pivotal force to find us and get help.
Pre-COVID-19, This time of year, you would be wrapping up the home heating assistance program, and now we're heading into the summer months. And again, pre-COVID-19, what would you guys be focusing in on at this point of the year?
So right now we would be focusing on closing down the heating assistance program, as you suggested. We also had a summer food program in the parks. That program we'd be working heavily on right now, planning and getting that going so that, kids that go to school who rely on the school system for their primary meal would be able to come to the park and get a good lunch. Those programs are all changed. Parks aren't open right now. The public schools are stepping in and doing that program to maintain the feeding through the summer. But really, a lot of folks are stepping in a lot of different ways to help people. It's really an amazing time to be in this region. Where
does Valley Opportunity Council get its funding?
So we're a mix of federal, state, and local funding sources, and we also do own some commercial properties that generate surplus money for us as well. We can use it for a lot of different creative, innovative ways that may not be, as targeted for funding from other sources. It allows us to try new things and experiment.
And what do you mean? And what do you mean by commercial properties? What is, like a store of some sort?
We own a building that has 3 storefronts and some offices upstairs that we rent out to companies, to businesses, and they pay us rent and we manage it and we generate some revenue at the end of the year.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to talk more about COVID-19 and how things have changed for you, as you suggested there. We're going to continue our conversation after a short break. You're watching 22 News in Focus. We're back here, 22 News in Focus, and today we are talking about providing community services to people impacted by COVID-19. We have Steve Huntley, the Executive Director of Valley Opportunity Council. So you had mentioned that things have shifted in your organization big time because of COVID-19. Normally this time of year, you'd be wrapping up the home energy assistance program from the winter and kind of shifting into the spring, summer months. But now everything is focused on COVID-19. How is this crisis impacting your organization specifically?
So we closed down to the public very early on in March and have done a whole lot more remote sort of applications and work with our applicants. We've seen something close to about 2,000 new applications since COVID broke out. So our staff are working, our staff are very busy. Some of them are working from home. We've spread folks out amongst buildings where we could. But we're really quite busy, as you might guess. Our early ed programs are closed to participants, which means children, of course, aren't showing up. We're not allowed to have them come in. So with that, we're calling them once a week. We're talking to the families to make sure everybody's okay, make sure the needs are met. We're sending out activities, as most folks are, to try and keep the kids stimulated and growing as this evolves with as little interruption as possible as we could with their learning and with their cycle.
And you said that increase, I missed the number that you said, it was in the 1,000 there.
Yeah, we've seen almost 3,000 additional people since the outbreak of COVID, where, and what was interesting, the way this worked out was, for example, the Holyoke Mall was closed, and there was a definitive period of time on the 23rd of March that how long the mall was going to be closed. So we could really retroactively and efficiently process applications. Typically, you have to wait a period of time for folks to demonstrate that they don't have income. But when their employer's closed for this period of time, you can know that they're not gonna pick up their income from the Holyoke Mall as it's not going to reopen. So we were able to efficiently move folks into our services quickly to help maintain resources coming their way, be it heating resources, be it utility related resources, and trying to keep their heads above water as they were struggling with really what was a surprise to every one of us, that this booming economy all of a sudden stopped. And
you mentioned, those 3,000 applications. for different programs within your organization. So what are you seeing the most applications for?
So the majority was fuel assistance. We did a very deliberate effort to outreach for fuel assistance because it was ending soon. And what the program could do was give folks a credit if they'd already heated their homes for this winter to help them have a safety net to get into the summer months for potentially their electric bill and those sorts of bills that they have. Really trying to help folks find every safety net they can so that the decisions that they have to make don't come to the point of food, medicine, shelter, etc. So we really have, our staff have worked extremely hard to get folks in, to get folks approved, and to get folks a benefit. So it's just another tool that's at their disposal. So the very scarce resources aren't spent on things that aren't necessarily essential.
Yeah, we mentioned housing insecurity. Is there a specific program you have that people are applying for when it comes to housing right now? Or is it even necessary because there is, like we mentioned off the top, the governor implementing that rule that there can't be any foreclosures or evictions right now?
So the foreclosure and eviction is really a great thing that he's done, but it is a little bit of a myth as well, because if folks aren't making an effort to pay towards their back rent, then they're going to have really a tidal wave of a bill that they won't be able to afford once August or whenever it's lifted. So really, we're trying to encourage folks to continue paying rent, even if it's a portion of it, and continue to try and stay as current as you possibly can, and really think about paying a portion of the income that comes in. Your unemployment may be less, it may be more than what your earnings were, but pay as much as you possibly can to maintain tenancy, because again, once the eviction prohibition is lifted, then folks may owe more than they'll ever be able to recover from, and that's one of our bigger concerns right now as we're working with families to see how we can help them pay some bills and keep things current as possible.
And Steve, you said that you've had so many applications that you guys are processing right now. The workload is probably through the roof, but have you guys had to lay anyone off within your organization because of all of this?
We have not laid anyone off because of COVID. No, we hope to not have to lay anyone off because of COVID. We have some regular seasonal procedures that result in layoffs, and that's in the works and has happened over time. But there have been no layoffs because of COVID, and frankly, we're so busy that it would be detrimental to lay folks off in some of these key programs.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about evictions and foreclosures, but first I want to take a quick break. We're going to discuss that further. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus. Today we're talking about providing community services to people impacted by COVID-19 with Steve Huntley, the Executive Director of the Valley Opportunity Council. We've been talking a lot about housing. Explain your housing footprint. What kind of housing exactly do you provide?
So we have the entire gamut of housing, quite honestly. We have everything from homeless families to market rate housing. We've evolved over the years that especially in the urban centers, Holyoke and Chicopee in particular, some of the market rate housing is substandard, and there wasn't a lot of great options. So about 10 years ago, we got in, and we do own a small portfolio of market rate housing. But really, our focus is primarily on affordable housing for those that are working families, so that they have decent places to live and to come home to after a long day's work.
And you mentioned that substandard housing. Is that one of the reasons why Valley Opportunity Council decided to get involved in providing housing?
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. So every 3 years we do a community action survey, which essentially tells us what focuses we should have years going forward. And every year housing comes up, decent affordable housing comes up as a major need in our region, where there's units, but a lot of them are just aged, tired, really not the type of standard that I would want to live in. So from there, that's when we really try and step in and upgrade the stock of housing. The most recent project we've done is Kendall Apartments in downtown Chicopee, where we took over really a tired old hotel. It was a hotel many years ago, and we renovated it into studio apartments where there were shared bathrooms, there were shared kitchens. It was really substandard housing, and we renovated it. So now we have a pretty long waiting list of folks that want to get into that building.
And you mentioned before it was shared bathrooms, and now it's individual apartments.
Correct, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
The shared bathrooms model isn't one we believe is really attractive to folks that are trying to better their lives, and the folks we pride ourselves on serving are those that want to improve their lives.
What are some of the challenges that you guys have been facing?
So there's all sorts of challenges. You know, the unpredictability of this COVID is really what's been the biggest challenge, and the lack of knowledge on how's it transmitted, what are the best ways to prevent transmission, how do we live in this, what's the new normal look like? Just all these questions are really just enormous challenges for us to figure out what's an appropriate cleaning schedule for our units, for example, the common space, the doorknobs. They're just, the challenges are all over the place, and then you bring that down to a per unit, the occupants' challenges. They're living with challenges where they're educating their children for the first time in a real big way, as the public schools have closed, and they're living with challenges with internet connectivity and digital divide and those sorts of things. And how can we support all of this and still maintain what we need to do to make sure food's delivered to folks? And it's just the challenges are just in every direction for a lot of folks. And then not even to mention the mental health and the anxiety that folks are feeling about going out in public or wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And just it's really a complex time for people. And if you add income insecurity, really you find challenges get exponentially worse.
And you mentioned, the apartment buildings that the organization maintains. So have you put together a game plan on if someone in one of those studio apartments, for example, in Chicopee, if someone does get COVID-19, is there a plan of action for them and for their neighbors in that building? And are you required as an organization to have a plan?
So we don't have a lot of specific plans in that way. We're in close contact with the local boards of health, and there's some privacy stuff along the way too, where we can't ask our tenants, we can't demand from our tenants testing results, and so there is some interesting things going on all at the same time. But we are really in close contact with our boards of health to figure out exactly what the best approach is for folks as they are testing positive, if they're in our building or in an adjacent building, or just any way we can help them.
And you mentioned too, helping right now. Children can't go to daycare programs or educational programs or on site. They're being taught at home now. Expand on some of the material that you guys are providing to families that have children for, education purposes.
So a lot of that has to do with, it's really, a lot of it is case by case. Some folks we do help with Wi-Fi to make sure that they can connect so that their children can connect into their high schools and continue with that curriculum. Other folks, within our early ed programs, we're delivering some content every week, every couple of days. We're doing, group meetings where they're able to sit down and interact with their teachers on potentially a computer or a tablet or a smartphone. So we really there's a lot of different things going on. Unfortunately, because it all happened so quick and so scattered, it's not quite nearly as deliberate as we would like it to be, and really as uniform as we'd like it to be. And that's something that, as the dust settles a little bit, as we start to debrief from this, we'll figure out where we could do things better, where things could have gone in a different direction. But right now, it's sort of just reacting to what people need, more so than a deliberate plan of delivering education or delivering Wi-Fi connectivity or anything like that.
Yeah, right now it seems like so many organizations like yours are just in triage mode. But I have about 30 seconds left. Moving forward, what about the fall? Do you have a plan of action? Say students aren't going back to school.
So we are continuing to, we're on Plan C right now as we continue to talk about different plans, because Plan A and B have already unraveled based on how this has evolved over the last 45 days. So, we hope that we'll be opening our early ed centers late June. We expect that it'll be limited capacity. We hope that will evolve and really grow so that we can start to continue to serve the number of kids that need the service that we have. There's an enormous early ed wait list in this region, and it's going to be difficult if folks that are enrolled aren't allowed back in because of it for more than a short period of time. The majority of our participants are working. So like I said, as the Holyoke Mall is going to open back up, we really are going to be looking hard at figuring out how to serve those folks so that they can get back to work and get back on their feet.
All right, it's a wait and see, and we'll follow up with you. The final word right after this. You're watching 22 News in Focus. You're watching 22 News in Focus, and today we've been talking about providing financial and housing support services to people impacted by COVID-19. I want to thank our guest, Steve Huntley, the Executive Director of the Valley Opportunity Council. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank you at home for watching. If you missed any of this, you can watch it in its entirety at our website at wwlp.com. From all of us here, have a good day.